The PlayStation 5 was recently revealed, but the big question is how much will both models of the PS5 cost when it launches in holiday 2020. In this video, I'm going to break down everything we know so far, as well as use evidence from previous generations to come to a conclusion of a likely price for both editions of the PlayStation 5. Let's do this. A good place to start would be to look at what the previous generations of consoles cost when they launched, and see what Sony learned from placing them at those prices. For the main part of this video, we will be speaking in American dollars, but we will cover the different currencies at the end too. The PS1 launched at $299 US, and when you consider inflation from this, that would be the equivalent of $527 in 2020. The PlayStation 2, the best-selling console of all time, also launched with a $299 price tag and did extremely well, as for its time it was the best value DVD player out there. That $299 when inflation is applied would now be $457. Due to the huge success of the PS2, Sony were way too cocky and assumed everyone would just purchase a PS3, so they ended up deciding to price the standard variant at $599. And what makes it worse is if you apply inflation to that, that would actually be the equivalent of $782 US in today's terms. 782. As expected, at that insane price in July 2007, Sony realised no one was buying it at that price, so they reduced the price by $100 and kept reducing it and introducing new models at lower prices, which did manage to turn the generation around for them, but that certainly doesn't mean they didn't learn from that terrible launch. By the time the new generation rolled around, Sony were able to announce the fastest, most powerful console at the time, also with the most games for the lowest price, which was key to the PS4's launch.
And will continue to offer the best value on the market. I'm very proud to announce that PlayStation 4 will be available at $399.
Meanwhile, Microsoft did exactly what PlayStation had done last generation, and they priced their Xbox One a lot higher than the PlayStation 4, and they suffered from that a lot. The PS4 was priced at $400 when it launched in 2013. To put that into today's figures, that would be around $450. The PS4 Pro then also launched at $400 a few years afterwards. That $400 price point worked extremely well for Sony and propelled their sales this generation, now giving the PS4 over 110 million sales. That's actually almost triple the amount of Xbox One sold, and Sony as a company will without a doubt want to try to do that again. If we take the average of all the inflated costs from the previous console generations, that would tell us that the average cost of a new PlayStation would be $554. If we remove the PS3 from that list, it would actually average at $478. Judging by that data, you would expect a new PlayStation system, such as the PS5, to be something around the $500 mark, so let's now narrow down the exact prices for both versions of the PS5 using all the evidence we can gather. In February of this year, Bloomberg reported that a single PS5 cost Sony $450 to manufacture due to the advanced cooling system and its blazing fast solid-state drive. At the time, the digital edition wasn't known about or even heard of, so we can assume that this $450 includes the cost of a 4K Blu-ray player and that it is for the standard version of the console. With the PS4's successful launch price being $400, it will be extremely hard for Sony to match that unless they did take a loss and make that back on software sales. I think before we go ahead and try to decide where Sony will be pricing this, figuring out a price difference between a PS5 digital edition and physical edition is a good place to go. The only other time we have seen two versions of the same console has been with the Xbox One S, when Microsoft launched the Xbox One S All Digital Edition, or SAD Edition as a lot of people joked, last year in 2019. If we do look at the current official pricing page of the Xbox One S, the digital edition usually costs $249 and comes bundled with Minecraft, Sea of Thieves and some Fortnite skins. It is listed as $199, but it's unclear whether this is a permanent thing or not. Let's assume not and go with the original price. All the Xbox One S consoles are priced at $299, which is $50 more expensive than the All Digital. The only difference between these consoles is the removal of that disc drive, and that disc drive in the Xbox One S is also a 4K Blu-ray player just like the one in the PS5, so it's safe to assume there will be around a $50 difference between the two versions of the console. Going back to that $450 manufacturing price, it is possible Sony will sell this console at that same price to keep things as low as possible, and then ship the All Digital edition for $400. However, I'm not entirely convinced this will be the case, and I think this might change depending on the price of the Xbox Series X, and whether Microsoft also announce a cheaper version of their next generation machine. I can see a few possible scenarios for the PS5 pricing, depending on how things play out before they reveal it. Given that the Xbox Series X price or a cheaper version of the Xbox is not announced before Sony shares the PS5 pricing, I believe the PS5 would cost $500, with the All Digital edition costing $450. If a cheaper version of the Xbox is announced beforehand, I think Sony would reveal a $500 price tag for the standard edition, and then they would actually make that digital edition cost only $400. If the Xbox price points are revealed first though, I can see Sony choosing whichever price undercuts the Xbox Series X, and I think they would end up pricing the PS5 at $450 and then place the PS5 Digital Edition at that magical $400 point they saw work well for the PS4. Out of all these scenarios, I believe we will always see the all-digital version of the PS5 placed at $400 by the time it launches, and the standard PS5 will either be priced at $450 or $500, completely dependent on what Microsoft reveal for the next generation. I can completely see the PS5 being priced at $450, with the digital edition being placed at $400 due to how much success Sony saw at the start of the generation with that price point. However, I do see something even more likely. But before I reveal the final conclusion, I'd like to point out that all of these prices currently floating around on the internet are nothing at all to go by. There have been listings on sites at $200 and some even over $800. All of these prices are just placeholder values that will be changed when the price is announced and the PS5 consoles are available to pre-order. I'd also like to ask you to put your predictions in the comments so we can discuss this together, as well as like this video and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on all of the latest PlayStation tips, tricks and discussions. I do always respond in the comments, so do leave your thoughts. I'm genuinely intrigued and I want to speak about the price with you all. So in conclusion, I believe Sony want to make a profit on hardware sales, whilst also hitting that $400 mark, and keeping the price lower than the Xbox Series X. For these reasons, I believe the standard PlayStation 5 console will soon be revealed to cost $459, that's €459 and £409. I have added the extra 9 onto the $450 as I believe Sony will want to make some sort of profit on the sales of the hardware, and the conversion has been judged based on how the PS4 price differed between currencies. I can also confidently say that the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition will be priced at $400, that's €400 and £350, just so that Sony can secure that same price that worked so well for them with the PS4. Now, just in my defense when the prices are announced, and if I am wrong, the purpose of this video was to discuss likely price ranges and then narrowed that down to the most likely price points, using a similar mindset to what Sony would when pricing up their console themselves. I'm about 60% confident these prices will be correct or very near, but we have made several assumptions on that way regarding how the Xbox Series X might affect the pricing process. I am, however, 100% confident that the console will be no less than $350 and no more than $600, so feel free to shout at me in the comments if it is anywhere outside of that range. As I mentioned earlier though, we have made a lot of estimates and assumptions trying to figure out the price of the PlayStation 5 consoles, and ultimately the price could really depend on who releases that price and information first, out of Sony and Microsoft, and what the first revealed price actually ends up being. These companies are going to want the price to be as high as possible for maximum profit, whilst also being lower than the competitors, so we are in for a really interesting start to the upcoming generation as far as price goes, to see which company tries to undercut the other and which one actually pulls it off. And I can't wait to just see how this all goes and find out more. The Series X on paper is more powerful, so it does also make sense for that to be more expensive, but then again the PS5's SSD is twice as fast, and that could level out the manufacturing costs, and therefore the cost to us as consumers. That aspect does really depend on the difference in the price to create those pieces of the hardware though. The prices I've put forward in this video are just for the console and controller together, not including any games or other sort of bundle that may end up increasing the price of a console. I do think it is likely we will see the Sony bundle the PlayStation 5 with the headset, camera and other accessories we saw in that official reveal for a high price, while still offering just the consoles on their own. That would actually be something I'd be interested in, as a headset and the controller charging stand looks really useful. For more PlayStation discussion videos as well as tips and tricks to help you get the most out of your console, then please consider subscribing to my channel and clicking that bell icon so you don't miss another one of my videos. Also, please drop a like as it really does help me out, and leave your predictions in the comments as to what the price of these consoles would be, as this video was actually made to create a discussion, and I will be responding to every single one of you who do leave a comment just like I do in all my other videos. If you want to learn how to get a performance boost on your PS4 to get you ever so slightly closer to the performance of next gen, then watch a video displayed on screen now. Anyway, that's all from me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.